Welcome to the Smoothwall Cloud Reporting demonstration videos. In these videos, I'm going to be giving you a tour of the Smoothwall Cloud Reporting product, giving you some information on its uses and how it will benefit you and your users in investigating safeguarding concerns for staff and students at any of the schools that you manage. The first thing you'll notice about Smoothwall Cloud Reporting when you log on is that you'll be presented with these analytical dashboards. The analytical dashboards that you can see in my window now are updated once every 24 hours at midnight. And we actually look at your users within your system, either from your Smoothwall on-premise device or any of the Cloudfilter extensions that your users are running, and ingest any of that user log data from their activity. The dashboards actually come in two flavors. You have the 24-hour view or the 2-week view. I like to use the 2-week view because it gives you some more longitudinal data and you can start to pick out trends within your users' usage patterns. The first graph that we have at the top here is the websites visited. Now, this is not your top websites visited by your users. If we were to give you a graph of that, and let's say you were a Google school and you use Google Docs for all of your schoolwork, every single week you'd see a very, very similar pattern of usage there, with Google and Google Docs being at the top. It is quite useless. So instead, we've opted to give you a view into your domains that have the greatest rate of change. So when we are looking at your domains visited by all of your users, we are looking at week 1 and comparing it to week 2. Any of the domains that have either increased in usage and number of visits or decreased in usage and number of visits the most will show up in this graph. The velocity of change is the most interesting thing from a safeguarding perspective. We can think about this with the example of a uncategorized proxy website that we are not aware of yet. In week 1, there's very few usages of this proxy website, but as the word gets out about it around the school and they can get around the filtering by using this proxy website, we go to many thousands of hits in week 2, and that rate of change is really what starts to give us reason to investigate this domain. Who's been using it? Why have they been using it? Do we need to put a policy in place to stop the usage? The next graph is we have the most active users. So here we're showing you the top 10 most active users within your network over the last 2 weeks. This is interesting because students that are usually doing things like torrenting or gaming when they should be doing schoolwork will often show up in this top 10 graph. If you are just using the web normally to perform Google searches, to use Google Docs, things like that to perform schoolwork, you're very unlikely to show up within this graph. You may want to follow up a user showing up within this graph with a more detailed dive into their usage over the last week. The next graph, we have allowed and blocked requests, which gives you a sense over the course of every day for the last 2 weeks, how many URL requests or how many log line requests did you have which were allowed versus those that were blocked. And this is interesting. Maybe you get a fall off in allowed requests, as we saw at the start of COVID for a lot of schools, where suddenly no one was on task and no one was doing schoolwork anymore, and the allowed requests cratered. Or maybe conversely, a spike in block requests, where students are now trying to access inappropriate content on your network or content you do not want them accessing and therefore have blocked. And you may be able to go and make an investigation into some of those domains and find out who is accessing them and why they are accessing them. You then have your search terms graph here, which is a 2-week comparison. Again, following a very similar vein to the top domains, where we are showing you search terms that have the greatest rate of change from week 1 to week 2.